Hi, Princess.
Hi, sir.
So the way that we start every episode, it started as an unintentional little routine or ritual for us back in the very first episode we recorded as we greeted each other that way. I said, "Hi, Princess." And she answered me.
Hi, sir.
And so now that doesn't usually make the final cut of the audio that we release, but it is still how we start every podcast. And that is an example of how we do rituals in this dynamic. Yeah, they are a part of our life, and just little things like that are connections back to this dynamic. But today, what I wanted to share with our live watchers and for anyone who watches this later is to spend some time talking about how we make decisions in our dom sub dynamic, because this is one of the ways that dominance and submission plays out as a part of day-to-day life outside of the bedroom on almost a moment-to-moment basis. And the way that we handle this is something that I'm proud of us for, and I think we handle it in a very pure way. And so that's why I wanted to share this, not just the process, but some of the different things that go into it, because it's one thing to be like, I'm the dom, you're the sub, you just do whatever I say. And it's a completely different thing um, to make decisions where you can let go of control and still be heard. So, for me, where I'd like to start with this is when there's a decision to be made, and I'm just going to speak broadly here because decisions can be very small things, right? And we'll talk
Right.
about the differences in some of this stuff. Decisions can be very small things. They can be inconsequential, but they can also be life-altering, directional decisions about our whole future. And in a lot of ways, the process is the same. And when there's a decision to be made, what I tend to do is, first of all, before I get you involved with, because I'm trying to keep you out of your head with a lot of this, right? Decision making for you. Well, what was that like pre-dominance and submission? Some of these
Um,
questions get hard for us over time just because now, this has been 5.5 years of doing this every day. So sometimes it's kind of hard to even remember how we used to do things.
yeah. I guess the main word is the overthinking and the not realizing that I was always trying to get to a perfect answer. And so there was stress, a lot of stress involved, which would show in the way I showed up and really just keep me from being present and many times enjoying life because I would just be lost in my head.
And that was a big part of why one of the very first things that I started doing when I put that collar on you was making a lot of decisions for your life.
Yeah, and at first it was like, "Oh, good. I don't have to make a decision here." And then this next step was really catching what was going on inside of me after you made the decision. So there's been multiple steps to the process of getting to be where I'm at, of essentially not giving a fuck at most things. Like, well, I won't jump ahead there. I'll share that in a little bit.
Okay. Because when there's a decision to be made, the first thing that I try to do is, well, I try to make all decisions based on our values.
Right.
Something we talked about quite a few episodes back, where we got into what some of the values are and how we align our dynamic to a set of principles where we are not just flying by the seat of our pants or going with what feels good, but really aligning ourselves with a set of principles that I'm accountable to as a leader, as a dominant, as the one setting this structure. And so when there's a decision to be made, first of all, I look at, is this a decision that needs to be made before I even involve you in it? And one of the pieces of where I want to start with this is we don't talk through things for an infinite amount of time trying to sort out or figure them out anymore.
No, I'd prefer not to. But that has only come along with being able to truly let go of being involved in all the decisions. And obviously, a lot of trust.
So our highest value in our dynamic is the truth. That is the number one thing that guides all of us in decisions that I make for us, in what it is that we surrender to, what it is that we follow. It's not just me as the dom getting whatever I want.
Right? It's way beyond that.
It's it's so far beyond that, and it's a part of what almost over time starts to make dominance and submission as words and as concepts feel almost like they aren't, like, they almost don't get to the depth and the point of what this relationship has become. It's like it's that, but it's so much more.
Right. Agreed.
And those are conversations that we've been having in our real life. But at the same time, it was this power exchange that helped bring us to the point where we are. So when decisions need to be made, which they need to be made constantly, the first thing I ask is, does this decision even need to be made? The second one is, can I just make it and keep you out of having to even get involved? Now, for me, just to unilaterally make decisions that are sometimes telling you what to do with your life,
Mhm.
there's two ways that can go. It can be me focusing on what I want and how I want it to go. I guess there's probably three. I can just try to give you what you want and shut out my own desire. Or I can try to find the win-wins where I can decide something that's going to be a good solution for you and for me both.
Right. So let's give an example here. Tell me if this is the way you handled our date on Saturday night.
Mhm.
Is this a good example for kind of giving a little bit of thought process and what went into what you chose to do and how you figured it out? Because I knew we were doing something. I had no idea what we were but I trusted that whatever you chose and found, because I don't like doing the research to figure out where can we go find live music or what might actually be fun and a social event to be out.
Mhm. Yeah, so great example of a easy life kind of vanilla decision. But yeah, if you have to get involved with where are we going to go eat, what time are we going to leave, how's the night going to go, what are we going to do if we get to the first place and it's no fun, all of that's just fodder for the overthinking brain to go to town on.
Right. Totally.
So, in my process, it was like I knew what I wanted to do, which was to get you out somewhere in the sunshine because it was beautiful, to go see some live music, which we love. It's our favorite thing to go do. And I wanted to be able to have the night progress in a way where we were having fun. Even if it started out that we were going to just be kind of chill and relaxed. And so I basically made a plan for what I was going to do with you, with a backup plan if it wasn't fun, which I ended up needing.
And you always seem to have in your back pocket a backup plan.
Yeah.
Even if I don't know what it is.
Well, it's just solid leadership. It's contingency planning.
Mm-hmm.
You always know not only what you're doing, but what you do if it doesn't go well.
Right.
And, that doesn't mean for the dominants out there, like you have to have two fully fleshed out set of plans, but you need to not be caught off guard. Be willing to look for where things could go wrong in your plans, where things might not play out the way you think they would, which if you knew that, if you knew where things weren't going to go according to plan, then you would make different plans. But yeah, being able to just adjust course without getting thrown off. Because the whole goal in this decision was to be able to tell you we're leaving at this time, dress for being outside, which Dawn did dress for being outside. And she brought costume changes for about 14 different weather potentialities. And
no, it was 4.
4. Okay.
Juice change. I brought a hairbrush, the hairspray.
Yeah, we were just going out for a date, but she looked like she was going on a weekend trip away.
Well, I had to feel good no matter what. I had to be warm. Mm-hmm. If there was going to be a country band, I wanted the option of putting my cowgirl boots on.
Of course.
So, I just brought it all with and I didn't need it.
None of it at all.
No.
But if you did, you were prepared.
I was.
Yeah.
And I felt good about it.
So, the decision-making process for me was, from there, relatively simple. I found a brewery that had a band, and I found another place that had a great patio that had another live music option for us later in the night, if that's how we decided we wanted to go. And we ended up, the first band was fun, but kind of quiet and a little boring, and we wanted a little more energy.
Yeah, but I want to share a little bit in there because this is how I handled it. I was enjoying the musicianship, the music, but I also wanted something a little bit more upbeat than what we were experiencing there. So I just shared that with you. Literally something like, I like these musicians, but I don't think I want to sit here for 4 hours and listen to this band, even though we had a front row seat and the picnic table up front, and it was great. It was beautiful. And so I just shared that with you and then let it go.
But did you think I was a failure because that plan didn't turn out to be fun?
No, we had fun for a while. And then it was like, I don't want to sit here for 4 hours and listen to this band. And literally now I can share that with you. And if you would have been like, no, we're going to sit here for another 2 hours, I would have been like, okay. The old me wouldn't have, but I can now, and just be like, all right, I'm going to enjoy this because you chose it. And maybe you're enjoying it more than I am.
But the old you would have felt more like what?
I probably wouldn't have even shared it in that way. Really old me would have probably got moody and passive aggressive a little bit.
She was fun.
Yeah. Right. You don't have to lie. I mean, I was fun at times, but not in those moments. Um, but yeah, like really just tuning into what do I want and give it to you and let it go. Truly let it go and not try to pay attention to, are you going to listen to me? Are you going to give me what I want? Are you, whatever. Do you actually have a plan B, or now do you have to figure something else out? Like anything that can take me to my head, I don't experience that anymore. And if I do randomly, I can catch it because I don't want to live there.
What does that feel like to be able to just let things go?
Actual freedom. Like I can enjoy life for what it is. And I can find enjoyment in a lot of things that I just didn't before. Because underlying so much of this was like this little wounded girl just trying to get her way, even though, again, I'm going to say this, I probably wouldn't have said that that is how I'm showing up. I would have probably denied it.
And all of that, the ways that that was for you, had a big impact on me because number one, I had my own challenges with upsetting you. Like I had a fear of upsetting you.
Yeah.
Because if I upset you, then you were going to shut down and then I was going to lose connection with you. And so I used to go through a lot of my decision-making process, basically trying to figure out what was the least chance of upsetting you and just doing that. And at least I knew that I was probably going to have fun, because if you were having fun, I would have fun.
Yeah.
And it was never an empowering feeling like I actually had any sort of agency, or even like what I wanted. Like what I wanted mattered. And the difference now in knowing that I can make a choice and have you just with me, and that I'm not tiptoeing around or walking on eggshells because of the way that you have embodied this submission to me by letting go and really allowing me to earn your trust and to feel as though I'm trusted, because you show it by following me even when I make mistakes, even when things don't go well. You're still right there with me. You still got my back.
Right. And, the second place we went, we found another good band. And if they wouldn't have been all that fun, then we would have, well, frankly, we stopped at one place in between. We sit down at the bar to have a cocktail. And I was just feeling like not excited to be there. And so what I said was, the energy here feels really dull. Like, do you feel that? Something to that point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but and you said something like, if you're not enjoying yourself here, we'll go find something somewhere else. Something to that point, I think. And I was like, well, if you want to be here, I can sit and have a cocktail here. I'm just saying the energy feels dull. And you were like, let's go. So we left. And then we walked around to another place. Energy was just pouring there.
We opened the door, closed the door, and kept walking.
Right. And, then we found the last place. But again, if that wouldn't have been all that exciting, we would have just done something different. And now I can truly surrender to you in all of these things. Mm-hmm. Because we're going to make the best out of anything that we come across. And I know that, and I believe that, and we experience that all the time.
And that's the trust that I feel from you that allows me to take a different approach now. Because instead of just trying to not upset you, first of all, I get to consider what I want too.
Right. As you should.
But then this is where decision-making and dominance get fucked up by a lot of people. because like, oh, now I'm in charge. This is how it gets approached. I'm in charge, so I'm just going to unilaterally make all the decisions and not give a fuck about her.
Right.
And that, yes, it's more dominant, but that isn't anything that's going to build trust or show love or care or respect for your partner.
Can I correct you there? It's more domineering. I wouldn't call that more dominant.
Point taken.
Because what I experienced in true dominance from you is nothing of that sort. In what you've come into alignment in yourself. Like you can't, in my opinion, you can't truly, I can't experience you in my experience of the word being fully aligned in dominance without your heart.
Yeah, this was a conversation I was just having with a friend earlier today, that I need to have my heart open to the same extent that I'm taking control in our relationship. So the more in charge, the more I'm expecting you to go where I want you to go, the more open my heart has to be. And now in things that are less consequential, like a date night, like no lives are getting ruined if it goes poorly. Nothing, the worst that happens is we laugh it off and say, well, that was a bust tonight. But still, the open heart means that I'm considering what matters to you as a part of the decision-making process.
Right.
And that's why, we can go to a place and maybe I could have a good time there, but you're just kind of feeling, this isn't very fun. Well, then I want us both to have fun. So I'll find us another option. And that doesn't mean that I'm letting you top from the bottom or that you're not being submissive because you didn't just like happily go along with the place that I took us to. And your voice matters in that, because that's like, to have an open heart, even in an inconsequential thing like that, means to hear you, like, and to value what you have to say.
Right.
Because if I say we're staying here, we're going to stay there.
Right.
But the thing that I've watched you get so tuned into is your ability to feel what's right for you and what's not right for you. And so I value your experience of things very highly. It's an important piece of information for me in decision making.
Yeah. So, do you have an example of maybe a bigger life decision? Oh. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, one that we've talked about is on our podcast before is the whole moving decision. Because, for any of you who are new here, we are from Minnesota. We live in Minnesota. We're in Minnesota right now. And we are gonna leave. Like we're getting out of here. Sometime.
I just brought up Hawaii today.
It's a really good idea. Sometime in the next year, we're going to be out of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And where we go, where we land, where our new home ends up being is going to be my decision.
Yes, please.
And when it really comes down to it, if we wanted to if we want to take it this far, I could just tell you we're going to live here. And what would that feel like to you? Like, how would you receive that kind of no conversation, no communication, but we're going to go live here?
I would probably ask you questions like, what excites you about?
West Virginia.
Yeah, I was going to say Idaho.
Sorry to any Idahoans here, but we're not going to move to Idaho. We're trying to get south.
Too much snow. We can stay in Minnesota for that. Well, this is a unique thing. Let me try to put words to this, because if you came to me with with the certain delivery that I experience when you just have this knowing that this is where we're meant to be. If you approached me and I felt that in you, I would just say, great.
And that right there is truth.
Right. Because I know what that feels like in my body, and I know what my experience of you feeling it and delivering it. I see it in your eyes and your posture and just all of your energy. And so I just cannot argue with that. So if you came to me with that, I'd be like, yes, sir. Let's see what's there for us. Because if you experience that knowing it's truth and it's something there. But if you did it in a way that it's hard to even imagine, because you don't show up that way, not considering anything about me and my experience and what I might appreciate and like about an area or whatever.
You made the point that I was kind of getting at, is if there was really a reason that we needed to be there, that you'd be there with me. And I know it.
Absolutely.
Now, the reality of how I will make this decision is I'm gathering information. We've been places where you have felt terrible, physically terrible, in certain cities or geographical surroundings.
Yeah, that is very fascinating to me. Like, what is this happening inside of me?
And so I'm constantly learning from your experience of what feels good and right to you. And I'm also paying attention to my own and what it is that I like. What do I want? Why do I want to be certain places? So this isn't just figuring out what you want and giving it to you, but it is still me being attuned to your experience. Because not only do I want to find a place that feels good for you to live, because I care, but also if something feels really bad to you, chances are there's a reason that we shouldn't be there. Like, there's something about it that's not right. And I value that feeling you have very highly.
Right. And then the other aspect that you get to do that I'm like, I don't want to like even think about trying to do that, is really tuning into what's maybe beyond, what's the bigger aspect of what feels good here, what doesn't. Because it's not always about like the specifics, but you have this ability to just kind of gather all the information and tune into it and feel the truth in all of it in what it is.
To consider practical information, like for a place for us to live, there's certain things that we want and need to be close to. There's like, what are the taxes like? What's it like to live there? What's the weather like? All of these practical things, along with the bigger picture. This is where it's my responsibility in any decision making to understand everything to the best of my ability and make the best decision that I can with how you feel about it being one of those pieces of information.
Well, I'm not even talking about the practical. I'm talking about this right here feels really good, but what is it about this, right? If we're in a certain area, is it more nature? Is it the quiet? Is it we have sunrises and sunsets? It's kind of what's going on, what's behind what is actually feeling good here, because we haven't also or yet like been on a property to actually consider, is this where we're going to live? Because that's a whole nother step.
So everyone keep an eye on Dawn's face right now,
What?
because we have a suggestion that just came in the chat that
Oh, jeez.
Alaska is nice.
Maybe to visit, but
In June. In June, we'll visit in June.
I value sunlight. And so I could visit during the time of year when there's more sunlight, but I don't enjoy the lengthy dark aspects.
There's a laughing emoji there, so I think he understands that we're going the other direction.
Well, thank you for the fun laugh, and hopefully it was entertaining.
That was Dawn's fuck no laugh.
I honestly don't even know where this is.
And that's the thing, that big decisions take more time, and we do have this ability to communicate through things very well, where the communication isn't one of us trying to get something from the other one, but it truly is being tuned into each other and hearing each other. And that's why this trust that we have for each other is so big, and it's so powerful in this, because I trust that you will follow my lead, and that wherever I say is right, that's where we'll go. But you also have a trust for me in that.
Yeah, and I have I don't know, how do I want to say this? Just the whole uncertainty in where are we going to live is a great example of what I get to live in now, in the surrender and not worrying and feeling anxious about not knowing where this is going to be, because we get a lot of comfort in staying in the same place, in the same house, the same location. That's been a huge thing for me, is spending lengthy times in other cities and starting to envision and feel into what would life be like here, because you have to you're going to visit different grocery stores, and it's going to be a different everything, basically. Different
You
restaurants,
get to see what it's like to live there.
Yeah, a different hair salon, and everything about your life just changes. And so for me, this has been a beautiful process of really thriving in more uncertainty. And I actually mean thriving, and finding the excitement in it of being proven that I can receive something even greater than I could even imagine for myself, and opening myself wide to all of it.
How have you learned to deal with not getting your way, or not always having things the way you thought you wanted them?
Well, I've laughed a lot at myself.
We laugh a lot in this house, by the way.
Gosh, the first one is kind of a hard question, because there was a time that you didn't really not give me what I want, but it was because I didn't really want, you know?
True, you had to learn how to let yourself desire.
Yeah, and actually speak it. And because like the desire would be like, well, I want this, but I'm not going to say it. And sometimes I didn't even know what I wanted. But then kind of looking at like, let's use the personal training thing.
Okay.
So I've had this desire in me for a long time. So,
This was quite a few years ago now.
yeah. So growing up, all I wanted to do was be a teacher. Why? Probably because the only people I was really around outside of my family was teachers at school.
Yeah, you didn't have a lot of
And then,
options modeled to you.
no, aunts and uncles. And some of them were,
Such a sheltered girl.
yeah. So, but anyway, I truly believe that the underlying desire is to help people. And then it became, I'm a single mom. What would that be like to have some sort of home where I get to help other women going through this kind of thing? And that felt really good. And I even remember sharing that with you. And it was like, I don't know. And then fast forward quite a bit, I still had this desire to help people and I wanted to do something. At the time, I was feeling like an unpaid Uber driver, just driving my daughters around. And I was kind of getting bored with just cleaning and doing the laundry and being home by myself. So I remember you coming to me and you were like, I want you to follow your passion. I want you to do what feels good to you. And I had gotten asked twice or three times, I can't remember, in a matter of a few days, have you ever considered being a personal trainer? And I was like, well, yes, but I don't want to. And then the next person was like, well, why not? And so I was like verbalizing these answers. And so then I remember bringing it to you and I was him-hawing around and you just bought me the course. And I'm like, oh shit.
Well,
now I actually have to do what I said I wanted to do.
in that conversation, this is a great example because you clearly wanted to do this, and I could tell you were afraid.
I didn't believe in myself.
You didn't believe in yourself. You didn't want to have to take the test because you were afraid that you wouldn't pass.
There was all sorts of fears.
And how you'd feel about that, and then that you wouldn't be able to do a good enough job, and you
had because I was holding myself to perfection.
Yeah, so you were just extremely hard on yourself. You wanted to do it, and you were never going to allow yourself at the point you were then, which is, we're probably talking 2017, 2016 here.
I don't even remember.
You were so hard on yourself that you probably never would have actually acted on it.
Probably not.
And so that night, I bought the personal training certification course for you and forwarded you the email that said you have, whatever, this many months to complete it.
I was right by you and I watched you click the purchase now button and I was like, no, I don't know.
Stop. So it's a big part of what this has had to become too, is you have had to realize that you don't always know what you want.
Yeah.
And as my submissive, you don't have to know what you want, because if you don't know, I'm just going to decide and I'm going to try to make the best decision. And you don't have to try to figure out something where you actually don't have an answer.
Well, I'm at a point where I truly feel like I can desire, but I don't have to have what I want to actually feel free and enjoy life.
Say more about that.
I can sit there and say, "I would love to experience this. I just said it the other day. You guys, I was sitting on the couch. This was yesterday maybe or 2 days ago, and all I was starting to talk about horses and why I love horses. And I start crying when I'm trying to describe the magnificence of a horse and what I all feel in response to this animal. Totally caught me off guard. But like I wanted a horse as a little kid. Am I going to receive a horse in this lifetime? I don't know. I think I would rather have a best friend with a horse, to be honest, or a neighbor, or just somebody that I get to experience their knowledge and learn and grow and like experience horses in that way. Like to actually take care of them myself, I'm not sure that that's actually a desire of mine.
Someone in the chat agrees with you because they're awesome. That's
Yeah,
why.
they are. They're just, oh man, I have this fun experience when we were down in Texas last year with a horse. But anyway, like that's a desire of mine. And I'm like, I don't know if I actually want that, but it sounds great, you know? And so what I've learned is I don't actually know what I feel about something until I experience it. And then also, like, I'd love to go to Italy or I love to go to Hawaii. I love to go here. Like, I just feel like I can enjoy so many different parts of life no matter what happens. And I just want to be with you.
And that's the value of surrender. Is it lets you be free regardless of circumstances.
Yeah, it truly does.
Which is why, like we say, surrender has to come before submission. For submission to truly feel the way that you get to experience it, it has to come from a place of being able to let go in life and not just get bossed around.
Right. And once again, I'm just going to share this. This is not brand new news, but this is truly about seeking more of who you are. And this is in alignment with who I am. And it's been a beautiful journey of connecting with the innocence inside of me, the little girl inside of me, and what I call my soul.
Yeah. And I've just watched you become more vibrant as you've become more free. And at the same time, I would love to hear how you've witnessed me change in how I do this now versus how I showed up in the past. Because it's not just I've always been perfect and you've had all this work to do. Like I was my own version of a mess.
No, you weren't perfect, but you were close. I always felt like you've been one step ahead of me, but it's not a comparison.
Not in a better, worse way. Just
No, it's not. But you went first in this journey of really owning who are you, and when our relationship wasn't quite what you wanted it to be, you took the first step for yourself and to become, for one, the man that I would desire truly. And I've watched some of what you've done, but I don't know all of it, nor is it mine to know what that truly takes inside of a man. But as I've come into alignment with myself, my whole experience of you has changed in and of itself. And what I was speaking to about before, I think I've shared this, but just that felt sense of truth in me, like I have watched your experience of the truth and what you feel inside of yourself. I've watched that open you. I've watched it open your heart. I've watched my love penetrate you more deeply and open your heart. And like we've had this commitment to stand hand in hand this whole time. And there's been times where if we're let's call this like, well, I say surrender for me, but it's also surrender for you.
It's 100% surrender for me.
So it's almost like I've experienced more of myself, which allows you to rise and experience more of yourself. And then I was called into more. I could see more of myself. And then I watched you rise into more of who you are. And it's been this like, I go, you go, I go, you go. And then all of a sudden it's like, we're going together. And our so much of who and what we are is so intertwined in a way that we just didn't experience before.
So we have a question in the chat for me that says, Andrew, do you, and by the way, if anyone else has questions for us who's watching live, we would love to have you share those in the chat, and we will take some time here to answer them as we go through the last piece of this podcast. But the question is, Andrew, do you ever get tired of being dominant, making all the decisions? No. When I used to get tired of being in charge and having to make all the decisions was when I was trying to battle with expectations and battle with the energy of disapproval and questioning. And a part of that was yours in, your defensive kind of fear-based posture around not wanting anything to be imperfect. But then also a part of it was mine in the way that I would perceive the times that I assumed you were doing that when you weren't. Especially as we've grown and you've changed, you've evolved, you've let go, you've learned to trust me and follow me. And then sometimes I was still reacting to you like you were trying to control, or you were being disapproving, or you were questioning, when that wasn't what was happening at all. I was still reacting to an old version of you. So when I know that I can make a decision and you're just there with me, which again takes you knowing that I'm hearing you, listening to you, caring about you, feeling you, that you're heard and valued. Like, so all of that assumed that I can just decide, and it's easy, because decision making for a man is not complicated. It's not hard. It's actually very fulfilling and rewarding to be able to take something that we care about and make it better, or to move it forward, to do shit. Like, that's what we're built for. That's what testosterone does for us as men. We want to accomplish. And comment says it sounds like a lot of work, but it's not. It's very, very simple. It doesn't feel like work. It feels fulfilling and rewarding and life-giving. And this is like all of the planning for even something like a date night, and what are we going to do, and when are we going to do it? It's not a lot of work. I look for what looks fun. I make a decision and we go.
Right. And this is where we have to accept the beauty of complementary opposites.
Yep.
Because if it gives me freedom, what's in it for you? A sense of freedom.
Yeah.
Right?
I get to experience you.
Yeah. So I want to let go, which means you need to step up, and we both get freedom in it.
And anytime we have a woman who asks this question, this is a very common question.
Yeah.
The assumption that is underneath the question is that would be a lot of work for me that would be really stressful for me. That would be really hard for me. And the fact that it would be a lot of work, stressful, and hard for you is exactly what makes it easy, not hard, and rewarding for me.
Exactly. Complementary opposites.
Exactly. So it's hard for some people to realize that this decision making, this leadership, this being in control is not overwhelming or hard for men, as long as the man is able to actually be in charge and lead.
Right. Which requires them to go through their own process to step up, obviously.
Another question, any advice for a couple with 5 kids growing into this polarity? Do you have any advice for a couple with 5 kids?
Well, if you're starting out brand new, it's going to require a lot of communication around the different areas of life. A family requires a lot of extra decisions that affect the kids and the future of the family. And for one, in the decision-making realm, there has to be room for conversation and both parties to share, express. But then if there is a sort of disagreement, if you will, on something about the family, about the children, one person has to have the final say, because you can't, like, there's not two people steering a ship. Like, what happens if both people are paddling on the same side of a canoe?
Good question.
Isn't that when you go in circles?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's no forward stepping. And so, I see it as the man having the final say in that sort of thing. And so, like, communication and conversations are completely essential. But it is a even more challenging area for me in learning how to let go of not trying to control everything about my children and their lives and who and what they are. Like, that was a whole nother level of surrender for me. But then the other aspect is, like, because this can go so many different ways. And so I'm just going to speak to one thing and then you can share. But can't remember if we released this podcast yet, but it was about the importance of dating and romance in relationship, and like, prioritize your relationship outside of the children, and really emphasize the love and the passion and the desire and everything that brings to the relationship.
Yeah, both really good points. The other thing, that episode is not out.
Okay.
It will be out next Monday, the
Okay.
27th. The other thing I would say, when you have 5 kids, you have a lot of distraction. You have a lot of, like, attention going in a lot of different directions. And the thing that you have to do is you have to deal with reality as it is, not like as you wish it was. You may wish you had more time where you could spend, like, that you could spend just with the two of you. And that just might not be your reality right now. So working with the reality that's present, working with the reality that your time is scattered and your kids probably require and demand a lot of attention. And so we call this in some of our teaching, like, setting yourself up for success, starting slow. And it's way easier to start with playing in this energy in a couple of places of your relationship, and then adding more as you feel that you're able to. It's way easier to do it that way than it is to try to bite off more than you can chew and then have to claw back and try to go backwards, because there's just all sorts of things wrapped up in like having to stop doing something that you want to be doing. So setting yourself up for success and just working with reality means you might progress a little more slowly than you want to or than you might wish you could, but that's okay.
And this is a little off topic, but something we've shared before, and I want to just share this again because it's important to this question is if you're looking for like adding in little rituals and ways that you can stay connected to each other throughout your day and routines, really tune into what are things that you can add the meaning to that you already do and bring in that connection to the power exchange. For example, we've shared this many times. One of ours is he always takes his first bite of food before me. And so, I'm assuming you eat together at least as a family, and that's an easy one to bring in if that feels good to you. This is not being prescriptive. But that's just one thing that we like because we eat together numerous times a day. And so we just get to experience that little connection to what it means to us, the love and the devotion that we have for each other. And
We can do it in front of other people and
exactly, I was
nobody
just
has
going to
any clue.
say, some people are like, well, how do I live this way with my children? Well, um, what better experience of life for them to see a beautiful relationship in love and devotion of each other?
And it also gets to be a dom sub kind of moment where you can be looking at each other with a lot of knowing and passion and excitement in your eyes, knowing that on one hand it's just a bite of food, but on the other hand, you don't get to eat till I do,
Yeah, exactly.
and you're waiting for me.
Mhm.
And I might take a little extra time buttering my toast because I like watching you wait. And testing your patience a little bit.
I follow.
You do. Any other questions for us, please go ahead and put them in the chat. Do you have any last thoughts around on your side of decision making and just the process of allowing yourself to be led and not in charge of your decisions?
Well, I just remember being at this point of like coming into awareness, and like realizing like, oh, I am a person, as funny as that sounds. Um, but then I was kind of buying into the like, well, I'm supposed to be this, and like, what does it actually mean to be responsible? And what does it mean to be a wife? And what does it mean to be a woman? And what does it mean to be in my feminine? And the underlying thing for me was just deepening into trusting that if I had all these questions of like, how do I even do this? How do I let go? How do I not care about so many different things? Because that was the thing for me is like that's the subtlety of control, of getting your fingers into like everything and gripping and trying to shape things into the life that you want, the life you think you want. And really, when I started to just let go of the facades, the all of the beliefs of who I thought I was, like underneath all of that is just this like, oh, I don't have to care. Like I don't have to actually make all the decisions. He wants to. And so I'm just going to live in the freedom of not having to. And it's really just this beautiful opening in me of connecting to this piece of me that didn't even want to have to do that anyway. And so now I can receive all of the beautiful goodness from you.
And here's one last practical tip for the guys in making decisions in your relationship, especially if you have been, like I was, very practiced at not having an opinion. If you got very good at not caring and have been communicating that to yourself and to others for a long time, that you don't care, you go with the flow, whatever you want, I want, happy wife, happy life, however this, crap has come out of you. If you're trying to step into a decision making role, there are going to be times when it's hard to make a choice if you've made your choices in the past based on what everyone else wants. And I've had to do this plenty on this journey, and as I've learned to take charge and take control in life, is if I had an opinion, what would it be? If I actually did want something, what would I want? And actually make myself consider what do I want? What do I actually want? Because I do care. I just trained myself not to for a long time. But if I can't be offering an opinion or make a choice based on what I want, even if what I want is informed by your desires, and if I want to make a decision that works for both of us, I have to consider my own opinion. So if I did have an opinion, what would it be?
I want to share my response into watching you become a little bit more confident and assertive in that way. It was like I started to feel more desire for you, and it just started to feel really sexy for me to experience you standing up for what you want and going after what you want. So it was only a positive response in me.
And I've watched that apply even when me and taking charge and making decisions based on what I want and not just giving you what you want. Even when that's meant that you aren't getting what you want, I've still watched you have that same response.
Yeah.
Like getting turned on and excited by me doing it my way and saying no to you.
Yeah.
So one last question here before we wrap up. What are the things in Dawn's day-to-day that she does care about and is responsible for making decisions about? So this gets at an important little point, and thank you for that question, because this isn't about micromanagement. Like, getting ready for this podcast tonight, I wasn't standing over you telling you how to do your hair or what color makeup to put on.
I chose my clothes today.
You did pick your own outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Did you dress yourself?
I did.
Looks very nice. So I guess the first answer to that question is this isn't about micromanaging your life. It's about guiding you and really relieving you of the decisions that do stress you out, so that the ones that you do make for yourself are the ones that are easy for you.
Absolutely. That's a good way to summarize it.
So, specifics there. Well, I'll give one example of the decision you don't make anymore is what are you doing for your workout? What is the exercise for the day? How much are you doing? How long are you doing it? Because those decisions got so tangled up here. But just for the sake of answering the question, what are some things that you decided today without my input?
How long I was going to be gone on my bike ride. I decided I needed to go spend time out at the park in nature by myself. So I did that. When I was going to sauna, when I was going to do my workout.
What time you got out of bed?
Yeah, I just wake up when I wake up and get out of bed when I want to get out of bed. Which I don't lay in bed long. I literally wake up, take my basal body temperature, and sometimes let myself wake up for a few minutes, and then I just get up because you're up and I want to see you.
And you slept until you weren't tired anymore.
Yeah. And, some of the things that I get to do when I want to do them is I go for a walk, do yoga, red light therapy, and I don't know, we spend so much time of our day together, so it's sometimes hard to answer.
Talk to and text your friends.
Yep.
You know, you will cook a lot of our meals and be creative with what you're going to make and serve me.
Yeah.
So there are lots of little decisions throughout every day that you make. You aren't leaning on me constantly to tell you what to do because you're incapable of making a single decision for yourself. This has really been about me knowing what decisions put you in your head and take you out of being present. You're very capable of doing a lot of things very well. But if I can make your life so the decisions that you are making are just things that flow easily for you, then they aren't the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis just allow you to stay in flow and stay in that state of surrender because you're not feeling stuck.
Right. And another thing is it's not always about being rigid. So you might decide you're cooking this one night, and then you might tell me you're cooking this tomorrow night. Or you might be like, or I might say, I want to cook pizza this week. And so you're like, all right, you're going to do it these 3 days because we have 3 pizza crusts with our sourdough recipe. And so you figure out based upon what else is going on in our schedule when we're going to be home for dinner. And then you tell me. And then sometimes it might be like, I just bring it forth, and then you're like, great. So it's not this like super rigid structure and order, even to some of the decisions that get made. There's a lot of fluidity in it.
But at the same time, my goal is to never leave you in those, when I do make those decisions, to never leave things so ambiguous that you're stuck still having to basically make the decision.
Exactly. I'm just saying, like, sometimes one thing might be mine in an indirect way.
Mm-hmm. But something, then on the other hand, sometimes I will just tell you exactly what. Like, you are making bolognese for us to eat tomorrow night for dinner, and that is what we're going to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And it is delicious. I wish you all could be here to eat Dawn's bolognese. So
it's just a recipe I follow with a little bit of Dawn love in it.
That's the best part. Thank you all very much for joining us for our live tonight. We appreciate you a lot. And this episode will be uploaded. If there's anything you want to watch back, it'll be uploaded on YouTube and all of your podcast episodes and listening platforms tomorrow. So thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for being here with us. Good night.
Yeah. Thank you all. Good night.